Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video I guess is a quick preview prediction for David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade. Of course, the fight goes down this weekend on the 25th of November, takes place in Las Vegas. And I'm assuming the WBC interim title will be on the line in this fight, which is held by David Benavidez. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Looking forward to it. Another step in the right direction for David Benavidez, who is looking for that Canelo Alvarez fight. Demetrius Andrade, 2-weight world champion. I guess you'd call him a top 10 contender at super middleweight. And these are the sort of guys he needs to beat to, you know, build his profile and build his credibility to get a Canelo fight. You know, bear in mind, there are people out there who say Canelo avoided Andrade. So, yeah, if Benavidez were to win this fight, it strengthens his claim to get a Canelo fight and to make him the real #1 contender to fight Canelo at 68. As for Andrade throughout his career, well, to me, his career's never really truly got going. On the come-up, I rated Andrade quite highly. You know, tall, rangy guy, quick, relatively powerful, quite dynamic, etc. At 54, I felt Andrade would become a really good fighter. He obviously won the title at 54, the WBO belt. Never really built on it though. Then he had a time out of the ring, came back, won the vacant middleweight title, WBO once again. But went on a whole host of, well, he went on a bum-bashing crusade, fighting the likes of Luke Keeler and Jason Quigley, guys like that. His run at 160 was as uneventful, well, even more uneventful than his run at 154. So Andrade's been a world champion in 2 weight classes, but again, to me, he's never really built that momentum in his career. I think there's been a few reasons for that. You know, first and foremost, he's not a big name. Some would see him as high risk, low reward. But on the flip side, I think he's made some really bad decisions in his career. Years and years and years ago, he could have fought Jermell Charlo, for example, but he turned that fight down. And here we are, 35 years old, I think Andrade is. This is his last chance at the big time. If he's to lose to Benavidez now, he is basically done in regards to big fights. It's a massive fight for Andrade. Massive, massive fight. This would be the biggest win of his career if he were to beat Benavidez. And as for Benavidez, like I said, beating a guy like Andrade just gives him that bit more credibility to get a Canelo fight. So there's a lot on the line for both guys. But yeah, how do I feel about this fight? How do I feel about it? By the way, I'm not going to do my usual style prediction for this fight. I just don't have the time. So it's really just a preview, then my pick. But yeah, I do like the fight. I think it is somewhat interesting. I make David Benavidez a favourite. He's the younger fighter. He's the fresher fighter. He's bigger as well. Not just in terms of height and reach, but in terms of just all-round mass and weight. Benavidez is the bigger man, and I think that could be a problem for Andrade in this fight. I actually think early on in this bout, Andrade will have success when he's fleet of foot, when he's agile, when he's fresh. We see that a lot in Andrade fights. He starts fights really quickly, really well. He catches his opponents by surprise, very often scores knockdowns in the early rounds of his fights. Usually starts really well. I don't think he'll drop Benavidez, but I think he'll start well in this fight. Behind that jab, the 1-2, 1-2-3. I think maybe he'll outbox Benavidez early on in this bout, and after 3 or 4 rounds or so, he may have even swept those rounds. The issue with Andrade is he can't do that for 12 rounds. After like 3 or 4 rounds starting really quickly, Andrade becomes a really messy fighter. He'll start to hold, he'll start to duck below the waist, he will refuse to engage, and he'll become really negative. I don't think that's going to be enough against Benavidez, who, yes, he has a lot of flaws in regards to how he cuts the ring off, things like that. Defensively, at times, Benavidez leaves a lot to be desired, but he's a big lump who keeps on coming forwards. And he can throw his shots up close, he can smother you, he can maul you, he can work in the clinch, etc. I think you'll see Andrade start well, but after that, it's how he offsets Benavidez, because I don't think running around doing what he did against Liam Williams is going to be enough against Benavidez. You know, Andrade started well against Liam Williams, won the early rounds, drops Liam Williams. But after that, after like the 4th round, Liam Williams got back into that fight. He hurt Andrade a couple of times. He was starting to mess around Andrade up close, working on the inside at times, landing some good shots. Andrade negated it by holding, by spoiling, by ducking below the waist, etc. But I don't think he can do that against Benavidez. Benavidez is a much bigger man than Liam Williams. Plus he's a lot more durable. Plus he's a much better combination puncher. And he's a lot quicker with his hands as well. And Benavidez can get down and dirty on the inside. He can work with a free hand. He can work in the clinch, which could negate Andrade's holding. I don't think Andrade holding against Benavidez will necessarily work out well for him. Another thing I factor in as well, I don't think Andrade is going to be the favoured fighter in this bout. I think it's going to be Benavidez. Benavidez is the guy where you can make more money. He's younger. Him versus Canelo would be a massive, massive fight. So I don't think the negative tactics, even from a judging perspective, is necessarily going to work for Andrade. I think Andrade in this fight needs to be a lot more... He needs to fight a lot more clean. I think he needs to be a bit more assertive in his approach. I think he needs to fight a lot more clean. I think Andrade in this fight should switch between boxer and boxer-puncher. I do think it would be beneficial if Andrade could land some good shit early on to get Benavidez respect in this bout. Because Benavidez is the type of guy where if you're not hurting him, he will just keep on coming forwards. Even if you're landing, he'll keep on coming forwards. We saw that against Caleb Plant. And that was one of Plant's biggest issues. He was boxing Benavidez up in the first 4 or 5 rounds. He was winning the fight. But he just couldn't keep Benavidez honest. Benavidez just kept coming forwards. Eventually, Caleb Plant started to tire, and Benavidez got back into the fight and started to beat up Caleb Plant late on. Much like Caleb Plant, I question Andrade's stamina. Because, you know, early on in fights, Andrade is very quick twitch, he's very explosive, he can be very dynamic, but that only lasts for 3 to 4 rounds. After that is when Andrade starts to spoil, when he starts to hold. So maybe Andrade needs to pace himself a lot better in this fight. Box, you know, mill around on the outside, maybe try to sharpshoot, you know, picking good single straight shots and getting out, making Benavidez reset, trying to play it as a boxing game, but at the same time try to run Benavidez into hard shots, especially hard straight shots. Maybe look for that straight left to the body, you know, try to target that midsection of Benavidez, but try to keep it long, try to keep on the back foot, try to make Benavidez keep on chasing the fight while making him reset. I don't think Andrade looking to spoil, looking to clinch, looking to hold is necessarily going to work for him in this fight. I don't think he's strong enough to do that in the latter part of this fight, like Caleb Plant wasn't, because Plant was holding consistently against Benavidez, but he wasn't strong enough to deal with Benavidez. And Plant's a bigger guy than Andrade, a more natural 168-pounder. So for me, again, Andrade needs to manage his stamina, sharpshoot and box, avoid the clinch, avoid the inside, avoid his back touching the ropes. He needs to be boxing laterally and, you know, being the matador, basically. Being the matador. Trying to make Benavidez's aggression work against him, trying to frustrate Benavidez, because Benavidez was frustrated against Caleb Plant early on. I saw signs of that in that fight, trying to taunt Caleb Plant to get him to engage, things like that. Andrade definitely has the ability, he has the style to really frustrate Benavidez, but I struggle to see him doing it for 12 rounds. So he needs to come into this fight and pace himself. He really does. As for Benavidez, you know, he needs to be... I I'd say a lot more creative in regards to his pressure in this fight. Again, against Caleb Plant, he was guilty at times of coming in straight lines. He was firing from out of range when he was chasing Caleb Plant down. I want to see more of a jab from Benavidez on the front foot, trying to dictate Andrade while he's pressuring him. Not only that, it could set up his power shots. It gives him an understanding of where he's at in regards to the range, because that's one thing Benavidez wasn't doing against Plant. He wasn't jabbing his way in, he wasn't jabbing on the front foot, which resulted in him not gauging distance properly and firing with power shots out of range, missing wildly. That happened quite a lot early in that fight. So in this bout, I want to see Benavidez be more active with his jab as he's pressuring Andrade. Not only that, I want to see Benavidez take a step to his left, take a step to his right. Don't just follow your guy around in straight lines. Benavidez does that a lot. I want to see better feet from Benavidez in this bout, and he may have to do it. He may have to do it, because if Andrade can build on what Plant did in that fight, maybe Andrade can do one better. So, listen, Benavidez needs to do better in regards to footwork, foot positioning, distance control. He needs to implement a more consistent jab. And obviously we know when Benavidez has Andrade where he wants him, Benavidez needs to let go of his shots. He can't be shy. He needs to let go of his punches. If Andrade's in the corner or backs against the ropes, let go of those shots. Even if you're hitting shoulders and arms to start with, just throw. Really try to wear down Andrade, who, like I said, I don't think he's got the best gas tank to begin with. Because Andrade, if you look at him fight, like I say, he starts fights really quickly, but he expands a lot of energy. Not only in regards to loading up and things like that, but there's a lot of unnecessary movement from Andrade in fights, a lot early on. And yeah, Benavidez needs to try and sap that energy. He needs to try and sap that energy quick. And then, you know, he's got more rounds to try and take out a tired Andrade ultimately. And I know a lot of people like to say it's always skills that win fights. That's not true. Sometimes physicality matters, and I think this is one of those fights where physicality matters, and I think Benavidez and his physicality will win him this fight. I think Benavidez obviously is bigger. I think he's stronger. He throws more punches. He's got better stamina. He hits harder. He's tougher. In a physical sense, I think Benavidez is much better than Andrade. I think he's got a lot more attributes there. And ultimately, I think that wins him this fight. I think he'll dog walk Andrade in the second half of this bout. Again, I think Andrade has the style to really pose issues for Benavidez. I just don't think he can do it for 12 rounds. If you're struggling to maintain the pace against Liam Williams over 12, I think you're going to struggle against Benavidez. Not only that, similar thing happened against Jack Kolkai. You know, Selecki, I know he dominated Selecki, but started that fight great. But, you know, after a while, he became very rudimentary, one at a time, very loose, very ragged. This is a pattern in Andrade fights, and I think against a guy like Benavidez, that can't happen against a guy like Benavidez, in my opinion. He can make you pay for it with his relentless approach. But yeah, it's an interesting fight stylistically. But I've got Benavidez. I've got Benavidez winning this fight. I'm going to say on points. Andrade wins the early rounds, but I think Benavidez comes into it, possibly scoring a late knockdown. And I think he'll win this one on points. Maybe even a late stoppage, but I think points. I've got Benavidez in this one. Would I be shocked if Andrade won? I wouldn't be shocked, but I would see it as somewhat of an upset, to be honest. Yeah, decent fight. Looking forward to it. I know this video hasn't been structured. Usually my prediction videos are, well, they have more structure. I'll go through the tail of a tape, what each guy should do, etc. But I've not had any time to look through both fighters and rewatch their fights, to be honest. And I like to do that before I make, like, real prediction videos. So yeah, this one's a bit rushed, etc. A bit all over the place, is what it is. But yeah, I've got Benavidez more than likely on points. Possibly a late stoppage. What about you guys? Share your thoughts below. Peace.